G'day guys and gal. The Grey Knights are a bunch of pretty sneaky boys, hidden by Malkador during the Horus Heresy and only deployed against the galaxy's greatest demonic threats. They don't walk around too often, and when they do, the enemies are usually killed to a man whilst their allies are either mind-wiped or killed as well. Needless to say, the Inquisition isn't too keen on me making this video, or the fact that other factions survive long enough to have a genuine reaction to the Grey Knights. But with so many galactic threats and so many Grey Knights being sent out to deal with them, they have eventually crossed paths with some of the other factions who have their own opinions on these new overpowered demon slayers. Some of those reactions were even quite positive and definitely worth a look. Before we get started, hygiene is king. If you're a sweaty, oily neckbeard, you really aren't going to get very far in life. Fortunately, I've once again partnered up with Joology to bring you a one-stop shop for all your hygiene needs. Although Joology started off as a skincare brand for men, it has grown and evolved. Now it offers natural smelling body washes, deodorants, shampoos, and everything else you need to be at your best. I do want to focus a bit more on the skincare though, as that is something that is so important but often so overlooked. Your oily, pimpy, discolored, or dry skin isn't just bad genetics. Skincare can either fix or greatly improve all of these issues. The real question is where to start and what to use. Joology answers that for us by asking us to fill out a quick survey and bam! A custom skincare regime with easy to follow instructions is sent to your door. Personally, Joology has been amazing for me. I really used to struggle with dark circles under the eyes and oily skin, but I don't get oily skin at all anymore and my dark circles have been reduced. The best part is that by using my link and code Majorkill70 below, or by scanning this QR code on screen, you'll get a massive 70% off your first skincare package with an additional 30% off another product of your choice. Whether that be the body wash, deodorant, or whatever, I'd personally recommend the deodorant, it slaps. Cheers to Joology for sponsoring this video. Today we'll go over each faction's reaction to the Grey Knights, or at least the factions that live long enough to actually react. Let's get into it. The Grey Knights are so secretive that most of the Imperial sub-factions, including most Space Marine chapters, don't even know about them. However, the ones that do often have some pretty interesting thoughts and reactions. The Custodian Guard are one of the few factions that have known of the Grey Knights since their inception, as they are allowed to know everything about the Imperium. Their reaction to them is very complicated. On one hand, Grey Knights are Space Marines, and Space Marines are gay, because many of them betrayed the Emperor. However, they also do respect the fact that the Grey Knights are born of the Emperor's gene seed, and do somewhat see them as little stepbrothers in a way. There is also an unspoken rivalry between the two factions due to them both having a lot of similarities and both being direct sons of the Emperor. The Custodies see themselves as superior, mostly due to the fact that the Grey Knights are weapons, yet Custodies are more than that. However, the Custodies are also a bit butthurt about the fact that in some ways, the Grey Knights are superior to them, as if they weren't, then they never would have been created in the first place. Overall, it's a rivalry underscored with mutual professional respect. After all, the Grey Knights are the only Space Marines that the Custodies aren't 100% better at in every way. Space Marine reactions on the Grey Knights really depends on the context of meeting the Grey Knights. For example, the Space Wolves' initial reaction was, "Fuck yeah, these dudes slap demons harder than we clap dogs." However, when the Grey Knights then insisted on genociding the population of the planet that they had just saved in order to prevent the spread of theoretical chaos corruption, the Wolves' reaction turned sour. It resulted in the Months of Shame, a direct and violent conflict between the Grey Knights and the Space Wolves, which resulted in the deaths of dozens of Grey Knights and forever souring the relationship between the Inquisition and the Space Wolves. This conflict also changed a fair bit about Grey Knight doctrine and dealing with other Space Marine chapters. They would no longer be super dicks about everything, especially now that the Great Rift is opened and the Grey Knights are needed now more than ever. They can't just justify killing worlds or slaughtering loyal army regiments, so for the most part, they have come out of the shadows and into the light. However, that didn't save some poor Sisters of Battle who ended up having a pretty bad first meeting with the Grey Knights. In a now most likely retcon piece of lore, Knight demons were overwhelming a planet, with only a few highly devoted Sisters of Battle remaining uncorrupted and in the fight. When the Grey Knights arrived, they decided to kill the Sisters and bathe in their blood to protect themselves from Knight corruption. Even though Grey Knights are already significantly more incorruptible than Sisters, and bathing in blood to try resist the Chaos God of Blood is fucking retarded. So I imagine the Sisters' reaction would have been awe and wet panties turned to brief horror just before they were butchered. But yeah, retcon for a reason. reason. Some lore is just too stupid even by GW standards. We do also get to see some Ultramarines interact with the Grey Knights as well. Their first reaction was surprise. See, many of the first founding chapters have heard legends of the Grey Knights and thought they're a bunch of loyalist ritualistic sorcerers, so they were surprised how upfront and direct the Grey Knights were. They used their psychic powers like a hammer, not like a carving knife. To test their loyalty, a Grey Knight beats the shit out of two Ultramarines while mocking them. Because the Ultramarines lost, the Grey Knights considered them loyal. If the Ultramarines had won, it would prove their guilt and then they would get gunned down. The logic behind that is a bit questionable and reeks of being a sore loser, but when you are the one with the gun, you can make your own rules. How about some of the other races? What do the Eldar think of the boys in grey? Well, the Grey Knights are never sent to fight the Eldar, nor do they often cross paths. However, the one time they did, it was actually quite a positive affair. See, there was a craft world called Malantai that was overrun with Tyranids, and then a bunch of Slaaneshi demons got on board and began eating the spirit stones. The Grey Knights didn't give a fuck about the Nids, but the Slaaneshi sluts were a no-no. So a strike force led by the legendary Arnval Thorn, a perpetual Grey Knight, arrived and engaged the demons. Despite Nkari leading them, the demons were banished and Arnval was killed, which isn't a big deal as perpetuals can walk off death like a hangover. The Grey Knights discovered thousands of undevoured spirit stones and collected them. See, the Grey Knights have vast repositories of knowledge and also aren't a bunch of xenophobic fuckheads like the Black Templars are. So they knew the Eldar deeply valued the spirit stones as they literally contain the conscious souls of their kins. Hence the Grey Knights signaled to a nearby craftworld to come pick the stones up. They did this as A, it was the right thing to do, and B, it stopped Slaanesh from sending more scavengers to eat the stones, thus empowering chaos. At first, the Eldar were pissed that a bunch of Space Marines were hanging out on one of their dead craft worlds. But when the Grey Knights knelt, apologized for the intrusion, and gave them back the spirit stones, the Eldar were taken aback and shocked. In turn, they became polite and praised the Grey Knights, promising to honor their sacrifice and remember their help for all time. They even offered a favor which the Grey Knights graciously refused. The two factions then peacefully departed after the Eldar personally escorted the Grey Knights out of the system. For the Grey Knights, it was the first time meeting the Eldar, as there was really no need prior, since they hunt demons and the Eldar avoid demons, whilst for the Eldar, they were so used to fighting Space Marines that extremely polite and friendly ones that did them a huge solid was very unexpected. Overall, a cool interaction. What about the Orcs? Well, Orcs aren't demons, and the Imperium has a huge variety of other options to use against the Greenskin menace. However, the two factions have crossed paths before. First was when some Orcs got possessed by Nurglite demons and had to be put down by the Grey Knights, but since they were possessed, you can't really determine their genuine reaction. On other rare occasions, Grey Knights will sometimes cut through Orcs to reach their intended target. Orcs aren't great at distinguishing between Space Marine chapters. They group all Space Marines together with subtle differences here and there. As such, their reaction wouldn't be, OMG, silver extra psychic Space Marines with the Emperor's gene seed. Holy moly. It would have been more like, oi, look at that fucking sparkly git, let's crump him boys, before they then got atomized by warp lightning or cut in half with a force glaive. Now on to probably the most important reaction. How did Chaos react to the Grey Knights? After all, the Grey Knights were made as the ultimate counter to Chaos, and they are the reason why Demon Primarchs haven't been able to stomp a Primarchless Imperium. Well, fortunately for us, one of the Grey Knights' first assignments was to assassinate Iskander Kaon, a legendary Black Legion sorcerer, who was also quite observant and had a pretty in-depth reaction to them. Kaon's first reaction was insulted. The Grey Knights had only sent 5 warriors to kill him. He expected more than that. He also noted that individually, the Grey Knights weren't very powerful psychers. However, they were able to combine their psychic powers and auras to form a powerful psychic presence. He also found it interesting that their presence physically hurt and diminished his demon pet, as if they had some kind of anti-chaos psychic shield, which, they did. Kaon fought them and killed 4 out of the 5, leaving the leader to die of his wounds. His overall impression was that they were arrogant, untested, and overconfident. After all, he was able to kill the first 2 easily because they broke rank and tried to glory kill him. However, he was also very impressed with them and their innate abilities and single-minded focus. 5 normal Space Marines would have been nothing against Kaon, but these warriors had broken his jaw, his ribs, his arm, and left him scarred and drained. He was amazed that the leader still lived without his legs and punctured lungs. He was even more amazed when he found out that the leader had actually survived, been rescued, and would then plague him for 5 centuries. The knowledge of their existence was surprising and quite disturbing for Kaon. He was a god-tier psyker, one of the most powerful in the setting, and he only really survived because the Grey Knights underestimated him. They had lured him into a solid trap, and if they brought another 3 battle brothers or just acted a bit more cohesive, Kaon probably would be dead. The Trader Primarchs all had a similar reaction. First amusement that this new breed of Space Marine thought they could take on a Demon Primarch, then rage and embarrassment when it turned out that yes, they could take on a Demon Primarch. Mortarion, Angron, and Magnus have all been banished by Grey Knights at some point. Khan the Betrayer has also killed his share of Grey Knights. He actually counters them pretty hard, his Khornite blessings making him mostly immune to their psychic powers, while the fact that he isn't a demon also prevents them from using their anti-demon shit on him. Hence he is able to charge in and fight them man to man, a situation that Khan never really loses. Khan just saw them as another obstacle. He isn't quite observant or reflective as Kaon, so his reaction is pretty whatever. Funnily enough, the Grey Knights have encountered the Necrons at least once. When they were chasing some demons to a planet, that planet turned out to be a Necron tomb world. The Necrons awoke and a three-way battle between the Grey Boys, the demons, and the Necrons begun. As the Demon Lord was about to kill the Necron Lord, the Grey Knight Lord had killed the Demon Lord. The rest of the demons were then banished, leaving only the Necrons and the Grey Knights. As the Grey Knights prepared to continue the battle, the Necron Lord lowered his weapon and his warriors ceased firing on the Grey Knights. In return, the Grey Knights honoured the parley and left the world. No point losing warriors against the Xeno race. The Necrons are known to have codes of honour and culture, so it's easy to see their reaction being, "Who the fuck woke me up? Holy shit, a demon. Oh sweet, the demon is dead. Let's let the weird silver space marines who killed the demon leave." Necrons see Psykers and other races as beneath them, so whilst they would have catalogued and studied the demon hunters, they wouldn't have cared that much about them. The Tyranids and Grey Knights have fought before, a three-way battle between Chaos, Tyranids, and the Grey Knights, kinda like the example above. However, this time the Tyranids fucked everyone up and won. As we don't see Tyranid perspectives often, we don't know what the reaction was. However, the Grey Knight biomass would have been pretty tasty. After all, it had the gene seed from the Emperor himself. The Tau and the Grey Knights are yet to meet, but I'm sure it's gonna rock the Blue Bovine Boys worlds. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up some Cyber Dynasty Warriors, the largest major mini drop we have ever done, featuring 31 new models available for only 5 more days. Hit the subscribe button and hit the real subscribe button for more Reactful content. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.